Hello and welcome to another jungle tutorial. In this video we are going to be looking at the latest changes to the jungle in patches 8.10 and 8.11 by going through some popular and effective clears that you can use to control the Scuttle crab, control the early game, and get advantages against even the strongest junglers. Now naturally it goes without saying I'm not going to be able to do every single combination of every clear for every champion. That would just be ridiculous. So we will look at a variety of examples and applications as well as the reasoning behind these decisions and why certain pathings and clears are effective. I won't go into the full first clear though, that's a bit boring and it's a bit safe. Most of you know it. I mean, if you're taking Kane and you just want to do full clears, look at their raptors, maybe a Scuttle crab, go back, repeat the process, that's fine, but I'm not going to really dive into that in too much detail. There's way more interesting clears that you can use to get level 3 and still pick up a Scuttle crab and a gank. Now, before someone in the comments tells me how none of these clears work for the jungle Quinn and I've got the latest OP clear, we're going to move straight into the actual examples. I've put up the experience levels on the screen now, and you will see that the experience of the Scuttle is equal to that of most of the camps aside from Krugs. So the weighting of it early game is greatly over exaggerated. However, I do love its importance because it forces junglers to prioritize it more than they usually would have. Before, if you didn't see a jungler competing Scuttle crab, you couldn't really predict his location. Now if a Scuttle crab is left up and you're not sure where the enemy started, it can sort of give you that added information. So the first clear is a safer clear, more for the likes of Kindred, but you don't really want to be rushing into the river to battle a Xin at level 2, he will most likely win that fight. In addition, given the weakness of Kindred in the super early game, if your lanes don't have priority, it can be kinda rough. So in this case, I usually prefer going buff, wolves, blue, and grump. However, in this example, you will see I do go into the river to take the Scuttle crab. It's mostly me just having a look to see if it's possible. I have my smite up if I need it. The enemy jungler hasn't yet rotated to the Scuttle, and so I will take it and grab that free mark. Sometimes the RNG won't be on your side, and you definitely cannot roam wherever you please. Kindred will be getting buffs on the PvE though for this reason, because they are just really struggling in this super dominant level 2 meta where the RNG isn't in their favor. Any champions that cannot do raptors, don't have a lot of AoE in their clear, maybe don't want to fight for Scuttle crabs, can use this very standard clear, and there's nothing sexy about it. It's straightforward, it's good, you will get level 3, you can look for Scuttles and ganks once you've done those 4 camps. Now before we get into the hype of the month, which is the level 2 go from your red to the Scuttle crab and then gank clear, which will come up next, let's just look at one if you do have AoE abilities. Now if you're starting from the red camp, you can go straight to raptors and then look for a Scuttle. Now you could look for a Scuttle on the same side as your red and your raptors, but that means it's quite a weird pathing if you can't get a gank off, because you'd have to double back and you're losing a lot of time on the other side of the map. It opens you up to counter jungling, counter invades and things like that, especially if you do not have vision and they have vision of you. We will look at an example of this shortly regardless, but let's for now start off with an Evelyn Clear. I go from the red to the raptors and I go to the other side of the map and take that raptor. Why? Because I can do it quickly, and because I've good AoE, that raptor will give me defense against any possible invades onto my blue buff, as well as most likely let me be ahead of the enemy jungler to that spot. In this example though, I do manage to see the Skarner getting his Scuttle crab on the bottom, and because of this clear that I've chosen, it gives me the ability to go into his jungle before falling back to the Scuttle. However, I didn't anticipate the speed of Skarner being able to rush back up, and I'm able to smite away the big raptor, but because my laners don't have any priority, I have to back off and give up the Scuttle. Fortunately for me, that Skarner isn't a very good jungler, and he doesn't actually notice I haven't taken my blue buff yet. So even though this particular clear didn't work out, that was my game plan, and that is what I do quite often when I'm starting on the red side with Evelyn. It also drives home the point of adaptability. Yes, I'm giving you 3-4 camps here that you can use to get level 3, look for ganks and things like that, but you have to be able to take the information in real time and also understand that the enemy jungler might have a clear that can test yours or opens up other opportunities. So throughout this video we will look at those kind of things. Let's take a look at an Ornn example, simply because he's off meta and I was against a Xin this game who, strongest on the patch pretty much along with Graves, can be quite difficult to deal with. Now, he knows I'm starting red side and he solos his buff, which gives me no indication of his starting point. I know I can do raptors, and so I do it. It's a safer option, and I know from there I can go and do my standard route as I just did with Evelyn and go take the Scuttle crab. Now because I chose this route, I actually run into Xin leaving my jungle from his blue cheese. He thought I was most likely going to go down and do the Scuttle crab in the river at the bottom side. And that's why I'm kind of liking the Scuttle change, because people so overemphasize it in their planning for their own routes as well as for the enemy's routes. Now he underestimates the power of Ornn, and yes, even though if we kept on fighting I probably would have lost, I have the laner priority and his invade proves quite risky and he dies, giving my first blood and double buffs to one of my laners. Fantastic for me. And now from this, I know categorically metaphorically, he will go down to his blue buff because he'll want to secure that as well as all those other camps and the Scuttle. Given that he went straight from his red to my blue, that means his raptors and krugs are up. So I promptly walk on over there and take it. Because Ornn can buy in the field, I can get the machete, get the smite item. It's very easy for me to do a clear like that and stay out much longer than you would anticipate. So this gives me control of his camp cooldowns and also tells me exactly where he is. And with the Xin, when you're looking for that level 2 pressure, that level 3 pressure, I can ping my laners and tell them exactly where he is and that he's behind. Alright, let's jump on ahead to the very brazen, I'm a meta jungler, look at me, I'm so strong, jungle clear. You're gonna go buff, scuttle, scuttle, buff. Alright, but before that you're gonna go buff, scuttle, gank, scuttle, buff. Basically, all you're looking for here is pressure. You have options to invade if something goes well. You have options to get flashes, guaranteed flashes if you're Camille. And of course, this level 2 gank can come before you do the scuttle, getting that free flash, top lane, mid lane, bot lane, wherever you need it to be. Usually, you'll go red, gank, scuttle. That all depends on the state of your lanes. And now, if you are Xin, of course, you can do the same exact thing. And even if there isn't really a gank to be had because your mid lane's pushing, for example, you can just run straight across because you're quite brazen. If that's an aggressive move, maybe you're looking to have top lane push in so you can invade immediately. You want to go straight to their buff stage or their raptors, especially if you have no idea where the enemy started. Now, if there is nothing there and it doesn't work out, that's okay, as in this case, because you can ping exactly where that enemy jungler is going to be, and even your team could maybe perhaps make a play. This is quite an aggressive one and usually predicated on you going for a gank level 2 or at least invading the enemy jungler. You do have multiple options. If you don't wish to invade or your laners don't have priority, you shouldn't invade. You can easily fall back after the second scuttle, do your second buff, and then reassess the situation because you'll be level 3. And now the next clear is quite similar in nature, except you're gonna go from your first buff, red or blue, into Scuttle Crab, and then back into your other buff and perhaps Grump. This is great for single target players. When I would play Warwick or Kaiser, this can generally work quite nicely. You have the option of combating anyone you run into and holding your own. You are quite a strong matchup, but you're not looking for that second Scuttle Crab. As in the previous example, you're simply looking to get that early Scuttle Crab out of the way, which gives you vision control as well as additional experience. If you have the ability to level 2 gank, you can still go for it. I've seen a lot of Eves do this actually. They go from blue to Scuttle, straight to mid lane gank, but it really isn't that great. Evelyn thrives on her fast clear. You don't really need to force that level 2, and if you get quite low from it or have your W on cooldown and you're against a stronger invading jungler, it can be really bad for you. Very easy to walk into the enemy's jungler, and I've actually done this and come out ahead even as Ornn against the Evelyn, and I will actually feature this example in a video coming up quite soon. So nothing too different from this, except you're not looking for 2 Scuttle Crabs, you're just looking for 1, and from there you can either invade, gank, or even fall back and take your second buff and Grump, depending on which side of the map you are. And now, it's worth noting again the adaptability of the situation. And now in this example of going straight from red to Scuttle and doing my blue buff, I can actually see the Graves ganking bottom lane because he probably wanted to do way more than he needed to on the bottom side. He wanted that level 2 gank no matter what. He was going to do his blue, his Grump, his Scuttle, which we'll look at shortly in this video, and then he's going to gank level 2. Well, it's fine by me because I can just walk in and take his red, which is way more useful on him than it is on me, and I'm happy to deny that camp and experience. In this example, I hadn't played Kaiser jungle in a while. She's been nerfed. I wanted to see how strong I would be. I do my blue, I do my Grump, and I head straight towards the top side of the map. I'm not interested in the Scuttle Crab because I have no CC, so it'll take too long. And I decide I'm going to investigate to see if the Scuttle Crab is down. Now the Scuttle Crab is down, and I didn't actually think using my brain too much. I thought, hey, the enemy Trundle must be at my red buff, and so I'm going to flank down from the bottom. Well, I run straight into him, and guess what? My team isn't in a position to help. This happened in the last video too. I hate Trundle, and I have to run away and I lose out on my buff. Now from Trundle's perspective, this is the exact same clear, just slightly different. He takes the buff, he goes straight up to the opposite Scuttle. Now instead of falling back to his second buff and Grump as I mentioned, he chooses to invade, and he takes a very unique path of coming around the top, assuming that we might have warded defensively. Well, you know, laners don't always do that, they're lazy. They want all the ganks, but they ain't willing to ward for us, am I right? And so he sees a free red buff, and of course I run into him, but he beats me in melee range, and there's not much I can do. So a great example of the two exact same clears with camps in different orders, but with dramatically more favorable results for the meta jungler. And that's why it's important that we play with our brains when we're going against something a little bit weaker. And so speaking of these off-meta picks or perhaps weaker picks that cannot really contest level 2, level 3 strength junglers such as Xin and Trundle, I like to play what I call the full semi-clear option pathing. I just made that up. I have no idea what it means. Let's try and see if we can break it down. I start blue, I go Grump, I take the bottom side Scuttle, I take my wolves, and now I'm level 3, okay? I would have been level 3 after the 2 baby wolves, but I cleared them all because what's the point? Now, when I get to my raptors, I have 3 options. I can take my raptors after buying machete, I can go straight to my red buff, or I can venture into the river to look for the Scuttle. And now I have numerous examples of how this particular pathing has paid off given the ignorance of other junglers about what to do. They don't go into the game with a specific game plan of how they're going to path, they kind of just do things. So now as Warwick, I actually plan on doing this exact same pathing. I plan to go from my Gromp to the Scuttle back up to Wolves. However, after doing Blue, Gromp, and Scuttle, because that works quite nicely in terms of timing for the Scuttle spawn, the enemy bot lanes got quite low and I'm able to rotate down and get that level 2 gank off. That's fantastic. However, and my top laner warded, thank him, I can see the Xin actively just moving into my jungle to steal my red buff. He already has both his buffs, so he thinks, hey, I'm gonna 3-buff him. Well, you know, that's great, but I managed to get first blood down in the bottom lane. I'll take that trade any day. I move on over and take his raptors, knowing he hasn't done it, but unfortunately Thresh for some reason predicted this and came to intercept me. Nonetheless, I got the big raptor. Xin will have to go and clear it and delay his rubber banding XP, so that's fantastic. From here I can carry on about my route even though I lose the red buff, but the fact that I went with this particular pathing allowed me to be there when a level 2 fight broke out. And that's the advantage of this, sometimes sacrificing your own buffs and camps to be able to make a play in the early game. But what happens if you actually do run into a meta jungler or just another jungler in the river? Well, then your knowledge of matchup comes into play, and if you're seeking more information on that, please see my matchup guide I made about 2-3 weeks ago, fully up to date with the Scuttle changes to help you out. Nevertheless, here I do my blue, my Gromp, I go for the Scuttle, and I run into Skarner. I'm able to push him off of it, kill him, and get that first blood. Now I can keep on going about my pathing, wolves, raptors, red, other Scuttle, and I have a lot of pressure on him knowing that he will be behind in items given that I can buy in the field, as well as the fact that I have more experience and levels on him, all stemming from this level 2 fight. Alright, so there are some 5 or so clears, different orders notwithstanding, you can mix it up of course, that will get you level 3, allow you level 2 ganks, be in position to counter jungle, counter gank, invade, or just simply rush level 6 if you want to. All of these play into your hands and play into the fact that people are being way too aggressive for early scuttles, but also enjoy the fact that if they can get control of it, get control of the RNG, that scaling experience that's so nice in the Scuttle Crab will be theirs to control. So I know I went into a lot more depth than would normally be required in a simple pathing video, but I wanted to give context and examples of the different options you have and how it can play out in your advantage no matter who you are playing. And if you're looking to keep it simple, those 5 straight clears are very easy to use. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, comment if you enjoyed. Those are the biggest things that can help the channel in the most simple ways. Please do subscribe for more jungle tutorials coming soon. I have a few ideas and things that are in development. We won't be waiting too long for the next video. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, I will see you all in the next tutorial.